Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nerd Herd Comic Book Club. Your number one stop for stellar reviews of volumes, arcs, or stories that us or yourselves choose. You can find us live every Wednesday on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and the replay on all podcast networks. Take a seat, get yourselves and your opinions ready, as it's time to join the herd. But first, please put your hands together for your hosts, Shane, Phil, and Scott, as they kick off this week's discussion.
Hello. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And we are here this week to help with those post-Christmas blues. We're all full of turkey, mulled wine, and lots and lots of chocolate. But TV's terrible this time of year, as we all know. So we're here on the YouTube live for your guys' entertainment. And I am Phil, your host this evening. I am, of course, joined by Shane.
Ahoy, hoy.
And Scott.
Hello.
And tonight, this week, we have read and we will be discussing Daredevil, Born Again, from 1986, the best year on record because it's the year the world gave you me. And it collects issues 227 and 231, written by Frank Miller, art by David Mazzucchelli, letterer Joe Rosen, and colorists are Christy Shield and Richmond Lewis. Like I say, it's Marvel from 1986. And while we're at it today, we will be celebrating Stan Lee's 100th birthday. And it's a good way to do this tonight with Daredevil. So, before we go into the synopsis and into the book, I just want to check all the guys who are in the chat this evening. We have James Copley. It's an Excelsior and happy birthday, Stan. We got Lewis Deacon. Howdy doody.
Howdy doody.
ABZ or ABZ Comics. Not sure. I think you might be American. Even all happy festive times, he says. We have Sonic's Comics and Evening All. And I think that's all so far. Oh, no, here we are. The Funky Gibbons is here. Heidi ho, everyone. Hope everyone had a good Christmas. I did.
Yeah.
And Jobla Comics, Louis, Dorian.
Whoa,
Yeah,
hello.
And Martin, just like me, 1986 is his year as well. Like I say, everyone should be grateful for the year 1986 because, like I say, it gave you all me and Martin. So yeah, we have an ABZ. It's concerning Scottish, so it is Z, which is good.
Maybe it's abs. Is it abs comic? Like
Maybe he's ripped.
not this festive season of all that chocolate. No one has abs at the end of December. We'll start again in January. I've never had abs in my life. I don't know what I'm talking about. So yeah,
2023 is a year for you, mate.
That's my year, absolutely. The Funky Gibbons. It's Phil's choice, so I'm feeling another 2 to 10. Get out.
Not far off.
Get off. So let's say we have read Daredevil, Born Again, and 10 out of 10. Thanks for coming, folks. See you next week. So, the synopsis for this book. I've actually written something down because I just got carried away with my notes. I'm so into this book. It was so good. There's so much into it. So, Matt's former partner, Karen Page, who left Hell's Kitchen to pursue an acting career, is now a drug addict. To fund her next fix, she sells info on Daredevil's identity. This info makes its way to the Kingpin, and in the months following, he uses his influence to systematically destroy Matt's life, making mortgage payments disappear, the bank foreclosed on his house. He messes with his tax records, causing an audit from IRS. He is disbarred as a lawyer. The bank account's frozen, has $10 to his name, and he was already struggling mentally before all this. But now he believes everyone's involved and his friends betrayed him. He is broken and on the edge of insanity. And this is the story of how he overcomes all that to be born again, I suppose. And we'll get stuck into that. This is the same team, I believe, from Batman Year One. I think it's the same. Definitely Frank Miller. I think it's David Mazzucchelli.
Frank Miller, definitely.
Yeah.
Mazzucchelli, I recognise the name. I can't put my finger on it straight away.
I'm pretty certain it is, but it could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. So any of you guys in the chat, feel free to drop your thoughts on this book as we go along, and let's get the discussion going. Any questions, ask them, and we'll try our best to answer them.
Ask them.
Yeah.
We may not be able to answer them, but just ask them.
I'm debating who to start with tonight because for the viewers or the listeners, sorry, in the podcast, Shane's name is Daredevil, bored again. So I'm going to start with Scott. Let's start positive.
This is the worst book ever written. No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. So my only other experience with Daredevil was one we read last year. Who was that by?
Mark Waid.
Mark Waid, yes. And I did enjoy that. So, even though this was done a long time before that, I had that bar, I guess, of where and how good a Daredevil story could be. Reading this, I found it clever in terms of the psychological side of things, in how the Kingpin was ruining Matt Murdock's life, in the shadows, using everyone else. Although it didn't take Daredevil that long to figure out it was Kingpin. This was actually, I would say, it's a really good starting point for new readers, because you get his origin in a gist. You kind of learn about his friendships and his relationships, and obviously his big bad. So you get some really good foundations there, and you do kind of see the downfall of him, and then a kind of new beginning, hence the born again sort of thing. So you do get this really good story for any new reader, and I think, at the time it probably would have hooked a lot of people, and I think it'll still hook a lot of people now if they do want to go and read Daredevil for the first time, and they can start there. Because I am interested in the fallout of the stuff after this now. But yeah, was it done in the 80s? So we're so close to that 90s art that I love. So that was a joy to look at all the way through. Again, quite liked I liked the blind aspect, but the art-wise, it wasn't done as well as the Mark Waid one we read. I thought that was very clever.
Chris Samney was the artist, yes, I believe, in that, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Just to touch on what you said there about Daredevil, again, I consider myself a fan of Daredevil, but haven't read everything off his. And this has been on my list for a long time to read. My understanding is a lot of people say just avoid Frank Miller, because he very much reinvented the character to be this more darker, more serious character at this point. I believe he retconned his origin from, I think, right. I think originally Daredevil's dad was a nice, loving family man type of thing, whereas he's retconned this where his dad was a drunk, essentially. So this starts a whole darker path for Daredevil. So I think this is a lot of people's starting point going forward, and what we have today in Daredevil is very much down to Frank Miller, similar to what he did with Batman too, because Frank Miller would be one of those ones that, along with Dennis O'Neil and is it Neil Adams? They're very much moved the Batman from the campy side of things, this kind of Dark Knight side of things, and he's done the same thing with Daredevil here as well. Okay, Shane, go for it.
I'm going to be positive. I'm going to keep it
positively
upbeat. We've
negative.
just had Christmas. No, I'm going to be positive. I don't like Daredevil one bit. I've never liked the character. I've never enjoyed reading him. He doesn't interest me in any way. That's not his fault. It's just not my cup of tea. But this, I appreciate it being a mature story. I don't like you say, the campy early 70s, early 80s, late 70s stuff. It's too campy for my liking. I didn't start reading comics until 85. All my comics, that's pretty much where I started. Because I don't like Daredevil, I was bored the entire way through because I just didn't care what happened to him. But that said, this is very well written. That's nothing against this book. This is my dislike for the character alone. This is very, very well written. It's Frank Miller in his prime, separating the art from the artist, because you have to when it comes to Frank Miller. His art is very, very, very good. He does very good with what he's given. I think I might have enjoyed it more had I read it at the start of my comic reading career. I don't get paid for this.
Man,
don't tell people this.
You? Yeah, who's paying you? Jeez, Phil, are you getting paid?
No.
No.
I think had I read this like 20 years ago, I would have found this edgy and dark and gritty, and I'd have been like, oh, this is so grown up. I'm really like, this is a adult hobby that I'm getting into. 25 years later, I've read dark and gritty stories, so this is just another dark and gritty story to me. There's nothing special, unfortunately, but back in the day, this was probably incredibly special. So again, I think it's a little bit unfair for me to say, it's not as mature as it could have been had it been written 10, 20 years later when they were given more free reign.
Well, ABZ said he read this when it came out in 1986, so similar to what you're saying, he was there at the time when this was gritty, and it was very gritty for the time, and this was Frank Miller in his prime. So he agrees with what you're saying, just 10 years difference, I suppose, or whatever it was, 25 years difference.
I just think the gritty has changed, doesn't it? Like what we consider gritty today isn't what they considered gritty in the 80s. Like if you go back and see loads of the 80s movies, they're like PG-13 now, or like PG or 12. Like they were 18s. They were rated 18 in the 80s, and now the rating has dropped so much. And I think that's what's happened with this comic. I think it just comes down, the longer you get away from when it was originally written, the less gritty and mature it feels.
And that's what Joblot is saying, is also that's all true. When it came out, it was groundbreaking. And that's the thing. This is one of those books that people hold in such high regard that I always worry about that in terms of, is it as good as it is, or was it impactful at the time? Kind of like Watchmen. And I don't think you've read Watchmen yet, Scott. It's a hard read, but it would have been groundbreaking at that time as well, and it's held as one of the best ever. But I don't think for modern day comic book readers, jump in and read Watchmen, for example, it would work the same way as it would work for people who read it back in the day. And this may be very similar, that for a new reader, they can enjoy it and appreciate it, but maybe it doesn't have the impact that it did in readers in 1986. But like I say, I was born in 86, so I didn't read it at the time, because that would have been quite impossible.
I enjoyed it. Like, I haven't read that many gritty things, but so I think there is that kind of bias from me in a way. I'm new to it. There's new experiences. There's something kind of cool and new for me to read, but I totally understand where Shane is coming from. There probably was a lot of this was probably a bit of a trend back then, I guess. But now we don't see this many types of books, do we? Modern time. So this is kind of
anyway.
Considering the stuff I read anyway. But but for me it was nice and refreshing to read something dark and cool and kind of slightly, you're watching a hero break, and you don't get that. I don't think that much
that's
anymore.
The thing. This wasn't so much there wasn't a lot of action in this book. It was very much, this is the demise of not just the hero, but the person behind the mask. The point where he can no longer be the hero because he's just so severely broken. And Kingpin is just loving life. He's enjoying this. He's checking in. He's offered him a job, offered his friends the job. Like, he wants to make sure he is there for every bit of this demise. A real kind of like psychological thriller, but just kind of really dark. Some action by all means, yeah, but not what you would expect for Daredevil. There wasn't a lot of jumping building to building and the acrobats and all kind of stuff. It was just destroy this one man and his life, and it worked for so long. Just want to check in with some folks. Triple G Comics is here. Evening all. Hope you had a great Crimbo. We did. J7 Comics, how you doing, buddy? Elvis was considered gritty once. I'm a fan of Elvis.
Can I mention something to the viewers before we move on? Just in terms for anyone who wants to give their scores later if they have read along. The trade that I had read consists of issues 226 to 233, I think it was, but we are looking at solely 227 to 231. So if you have read along and you have read those issues either side, then please consider that for your score.
See, my trade had 227 to 233. So I didn't get the one before, but I got the two after.
All right.
See, the one I have is those Marvel, what are they called? Ultimate Graphic Novel Collection, one with the fancy spines. And it has 227 to 233, and I haven't read the remaining two issues because I wanted I read them tonight, and I wanted to get
Yeah.
for this show, just for the ones we were reading. But the trades you can buy on Amazon, the trades you can buy on like Forbidden Planet, they all have 227 to 231, which is why we've read it. My understanding is those two follow-up issues are very much tying some loose ends together. You'll see Karen Page and somebody else mentioned, I can't remember who it is. But the 226, I'm assuming maybe more Karen Page related, because it starts off, this book starts for her in south of the border. I'm not sure where she is. South of the border, getting her drugs. So maybe it's very much where she's at, and then it starts into this born again storyline. But again, just for the purpose of tonight's show, 227 to 231 is what we're going to be judging. I think we have a new name in the chat. Tom, I'm not sure if you've been here before, but thanks for joining us. He said, I loved Frank Miller's Daredevil. Agree it may be dated, but when I read it in the mid-90s, it was brilliant. Didn't read in 86 as I was one. Also, howdy, lads. Thanks for joining us. But yeah. Again, just for that shouldn't cloud our scoring, but I find things like that really annoying and confusing when there's a mismatch of numbers. Just tell us what it is, Don't have 3 or 4 different versions. But again, maybe because the story is held to high regard, that they re-release the trades every so often, and there are multiple trades out there with different issues contained within. And is that a good thing because it's so popular they reprint it all the time, or is it, again, for some readers, just really an annoyance?
But yeah, because it's the creative team, isn't it, saying, right, this was the story, this was the 4 issues, that was our story, and then 5 years down the line they go, well, actually technically the next 2 issues could be included, so when you bring the next trade out, and then 10 years later they go, well, technically the one before should go to it as well, and then you can bring another trade out for the anniversary. And it's just a way of getting people to buy more trades, because if you bought the first trade of the 4 issues, the 4 issues, 5, sorry, then you'll get the second trade with the extra 2 issues in, then you'll get the third trade with the extra issue in. So it's just a way of them to just keep getting us to buy trades. And the Daredevil fan will, won't they? They'll get all the versions of Born Again if it is the pinnacle trade for Daredevil. It's clever marketing.
And Lewis has confirmed his Artisan edition is 227 to 233.
Someone's doing well.
Yeah.
The Artisan edition.
Yeah. And I think Louis here's talking about maybe the issues before. This was done when long-running writer Denny O'Neil was leaving the book, and he needed a bridge before the new creative team came on board. I wonder if it's about the issues. And ABZ is saying issue 232 is pretty epic.
Man, don't tease.
I think that's the one with the Avengers in it, isn't it? I think they come and join him.
They come in at some point. My understanding, and they referenced a character called Nuke in this book. Remember, Kingpin was call Nuke or whatever it was, and they couldn't get him. But I think he comes into it. I don't know who
I've seen
Nuke
the cover.
is,
He's got an American flag tattoo on his face. Yeah.
But I'm wondering, because I think he was in the Wolverine book, and if anyone knows in the chat, is he the guy who was in the Wolverine movie? Do you remember the guy who got really fat in the movie, but he was with Wolverine or with Logan at the start?
That was Blob.
Yeah.
Was it Blob? Okay, then I'm wrong. I just thought that was. I don't know why, because he looked the same. He was muscular with an army suit, wasn't he? But yeah, okay, that's Blob. That's fair.
Are we going to talk about how gorgeous the 80s art was?
Yes.
I'm a big fan. It's weird because they don't, in my opinion, they don't do things too dynamic. There's nothing too crazy on the page, but it works and it's wonderful. And I don't know, David Mazzucchelli, again, year one in this are 2 beautiful, beautiful books. What do you think then, Shane, since you wanted to bring it up?
I mean, as soon as you open the book and you see the art, you're just like, oh, that's a good book. Oh, you can't help but love this art. This is comic book art. This is when you think in your brain what comic book art is, when you think of a comic book from anywhere other than the 2000s, go back to 80s and 90s, this is what you think of. Beautiful, clean lines, great pops of color. You even get the little hatching backgrounds with the little dotted line, the little dots. It just makes it look like a beautifully retro comic book, but it's my ideal comic style. This is how I enjoy a comic when I'm reading it. Far too many monologue boxes covering up far too much of the art, but the art is gorgeous.
See, I think the more I'm reading now, especially since we've read Friday last week, I think I'm just I think I just prefer monologue boxes. I think I can get into the story a lot easier.
I think you want novels
Through
and not comics.
Mate, yeah, I think I do. Like, yeah. Right, I'm going, guys. Yeah, like, this is my last
Scott's
show.
starting his own channel, the Nerd Herd Book Club.
Yeah, it'd be every 6 months because it takes me forever to read a book.
Yeah, to be fair, I get what you're saying though. I think the monologue boxes, they did take up a lot of space. There were quite a few. I think the page I picked has like a dozen down one side.
Yeah.
But they're necessary, and they do very well at telling the story such a really informed kind of way. Like, you're really invested in the story because you can't just have speech bubbles explain things all the time, or even just a few narration boxes. The monologue and the fact that it jumped from character to character. Some people could find that jarring, but I like that. You know, it could be Ben's monologue, it could be Kingpin's, it could be Daredevil's. I like the fact that it jumped between the stories, and there was quite a lot of boxes for each page because it explained where they're at this point in the story, like individual characters. I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
So, all right. Well, since we're talking about pages, we'll let's get into it. Then we've received some pages from some of the folks in the chat. Just going forward, if anyone new here watching live, if you have read along, feel free to send us your page, and we could show it in those weeks that we read those books
via Instagram, please.
Yes. Where are we? Right. So we'll start with, and some people cheated this week because I know some people give us 2 pages, and that's okay. Christmas is over, but Santa is in this book, so I suppose we're still feeling a bit festive, and we'll allow more than 1 page. So Kev sent in this, and do you have an explanation for this, Scott?
Yeah. He says, I went for these 2 pages for my pick. I like how the camera zooms in on Ben's face as he listens into the man being murdered. I also like the fact that the characters at the bugle are completely oblivious to what is happening on the other end of the line. Great storytelling.
Yeah, this is like watching Kev's draw-alongs, like the fact that you can kind of put drama into your art. I mean, this showcases that, the fact that he's on the phone, just a normal call, and all of a sudden he's listening to this guy being murdered by this big nurse lady, and you just see the fear in his face. And that, with Ben's kind of character arc in this story, the fact that he took a back step, he was so geared up to helping Matt, trying to find out the information in this story. Once this happens, he's like, I can't do this. I'm standing back, and I thought it was great. And these 2 pages, like the fact that he changes color as well, like
I know.
It's just so cool.
And his face gets longer and longer and redder, and it's
cool
really good, really powerful.
And even the page before this, whenever the cop, I forget his name, is it Detective Manolis, I think, was first makes the phone call to Ben. You see the doorway and there's no one in it. In the next panel, you see the silhouette of this big
Shadow,
woman. Yeah, it's like he's in trouble, and it's just really cool the way they've done that. Yeah. Do you have the explanation for the other guys?
Yeah, I've got Lewis's. If you want to go for him next.
So Lewis's give 2 pages.
The biggest cheater.
Yeah, and we have one at a time. So this is the first one.
Okay. Show the next one.
And this is the second.
There we go. So he says, I cheated and chose 2 pages because I think they relate. I enjoy the darkness portrayed in Daredevil's suit, showing Matt Murdock's demise, then show again in the Kingpin's hollow, smoky eyes. Then the second page then shows the rebirth of Matt Murdock as a character in beating the fake Daredevil, but simultaneously referencing Matt get past the old Daredevil he was and become this new hero for Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, mate. That's big brain. That is good. That's very good observation there. I saw it personally. I didn't say I was testing you guys, so I'm glad that Lewis brought it up. And 5 points for Lewis.
Do you have James's?
I do.
Yep. So he's in this page.
So James had said, when I turned over this page, I welled up. The journey to this point has been so hard for the both of them. The art style through this book for me is flawless. The pacing and writing is fantastic. And Daredevil is quickly becoming my favourite character. The complexity of the character really interests me. Now, seeing this page, I can understand that you well up and it's quite an emotional moment, but for me, I'm like, this is all her fault. He is like this because it's all her fault, because she just wanted a bit of whatever drugs it was. And so I'm hoping if I do read on to 232, 233 or whatever, then you do see the fallout of this. This is what I want to see. I want either her to own up or him to find out, or the Kingpin to dob her up or something, you know what I mean, just to ruin his life a bit more. I want to see that because she can't get away with this. This is all her fault.
To be fair, she's had a hard time, so I don't know what happens in the next 2 issues, but it's one of those things. I think obviously throughout this whole book, there's a lot of like Catholic religious connotations about forgiveness, and so maybe this is as very much a born again story for Karen as it is for Matt. So I think he will forgive her more than likely, but it's all her fault because she needed her next fix of junk, as they referred to in the book.
Stupid Karen.
She sold the details.
Classic Karen.
Yeah, exactly. Classic Karen. There's plenty of Twitter pages dedicated to Karens all around the world, and that's people like her. Yeah. I'll just bring this up actually, since I mentioned religion and things like this. There's a lot of symbolism. This is just one example throughout this book, and we touched on this earlier on, or we spoke backstage that each kind of issue started off with Matt in bed. It's
like a bird's eye view of him in bed,
But this
slowly going into the fetal position.
So this one here is obviously, he's on bed. He's at the mission. He's been healed by the nuns, and obviously the white cross is there, type of thing. And this is symbolizing him being born again. So he's had everything leading up, just like Jesus Christ, I suppose, went through all the trials and tribulations. Now he's on the cross,
just like Jesus.
And maybe not just like Jesus, but you know what I'm trying to say. There's some parallels between the kind of story in that way, and obviously him and the cross. But there's a few things, like even there was an image of him in one of the nuns' arms. That's just before this, I think, and it turns out that's potentially, or maybe is, Matt's mother, Maggie, as the nun. But I just thought all that kind of stuff, those kind of wee imagery, I liked all that. Shane, what are your page?
Yeah. See, now, if I knew people were sending in 2 pages, I would have had the 3 pages of him starting off in bed for the first 3 issues. Because
too
then
many
you
pages.
See him.
We may as well just show everyone the book from page to page.
I would have edited them all together into one long, so you could have seen him lying straight in bed, then slowly curling up into the fetal position by issue 3.
That would count as one. If you merged them all together, that would be one, and that would be okay.
There you go. For a future nerd herd. No, I picked this page. This is Matt Murdock when he went to face off against Kingpin after figuring out that Kingpin's the one behind it all. And he just gets absolutely trounced by him. I really enjoy the lack of detail behind them. The fact that it's just brought down to these 2 men. Everything else has been removed. Even the background. There's no walls, there's no doors. This now has become about these 2 men and nothing else. And I just thought that was really interesting. Great. So it's a great choice for the artist to just leave everything white and trust his own art that well.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. The lettering helps, I think, and the big blood splatters. I think removing the panels makes everything a bit more powerful.
Yeah,
and the fact that the Kingpin's just fighting him in great big purple trunks.
I know, in his pants.
Yeah,
he looks like the Hulk.
It's hilarious. It's great. Scott and I picked the same page, which we have done many times in the past, but it's been a while since we all picked the same page, or some of us picked the same page. And Scott, do you want to give your thoughts first and see if they mirror mine?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it looks great, and Phil, I know why you've picked it, because there's snow and there's purple everywhere. But for me, this was such a powerful page. I think it was this at the end of issue 1 or the third issue 2?
Second,
or the second one. And yeah, it's just such a calm page, and he's just standing there looking over the city, but then all the stuff he's saying down the side, and it's just, you just know he's like ruining Matt Murdock's life. And this is such a powerful page, and I love the middle panel, the smoke and how wispy it looks, and the art is just stunning. And I have no idea how you can draw like that. It's awesome. but yeah, really, really strong, powerful, calm page. It just ticked a lot of boxes for me, and it's just very well done.
Yeah, very much the same vibe. Like, yes, it does have pinks and purples, which is nice, and snow. But the fact that you're right, he's looking over at the city, and it's his city. Like,
Yeah,
I own this empire, and I am just basking in the glory that I've destroyed this little man's life. And I think the last box there says the Kingpin looks at his city and thinks of how wonderful it is to be alive. Like, he's just enjoying life at the
yeah,
minute by being such a dick and being so sinister by destroying this guy. And it's just the fact that that's the Kingpin all over, and he just feels in total control. I think these 3 panels do that so well. But like I said, the menacing look in his eyes and the smoke, the cigar smoke, it's just
Yeah.
like it. Like, you know, this is the villain by looking at this page. This guy is the villain. If you didn't know who Kingpin was, of course, but we all know. But that cements him as the villain in my eyes. And yeah, throughout the whole book, to be honest, we've all touched on it. The art's fantastic. It's phenomenal. And sometimes you think, you wish comic books today were still drawn that way, even though you get fantastic books nowadays, of course. But just that art is just wonderful. Okay. Just referring to Scott's comment about Karen Page. Scott, Matt's Catholic upbringing means he forgives her forever. So yeah, so he's willing to forgive Karen for her sins.
At least give her a slap on the wrist or something. Just be like, all right, fine, I forgive you, but just don't do it again, all right? Just leave it there.
And Lewis said he does love how they drew Kingpin. He almost looks piggish, which then is also portrayed as his character actions and his character actions. He does look a bit what's the word I'm looking for? Gluttonous. But he's just a big beast. And he's hitting the gym, lifting weights and all in his pants. He's just a big brute.
How many panels did we see of Kingpin in his pants?
Too many.
You should have these stats.
Man.
Come on. You didn't do your job then.
You didn't get the stats for Kingpin in pants. Man.
Next time.
Kepler's dad is here saying, sorry I'm late, phone trouble. Just glad you're here. And he said he almost sent the Kingpin frame.
In his pants, or?
Yeah. So that's what we've gushed long enough over the art. I think we all enjoy it for many different reasons. But let's get on to the story. I know, Shane, you said you were bored, but that's more because of the character. And you said it was written really well as a story. Do you want to kind of elaborate more on that then?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the Karen parts. That I really felt bad for Karen. Like, she's the one I actually cared about in the whole book. I didn't really care about anyone else, but again, that's because I'm not a fan of these characters. The Daredevil parts were long and drawn out, and I understand what they were doing. I didn't miss any of the themes of the book. I understood what it was going for. I just felt it was very, very long, and that, again, because it's a character I don't care about, it felt longer. So I suppose if someone enjoys the character, it's not going to feel long. But because I don't enjoy the character, for me reading the Daredevil parts, I was just like, to get back to Karen. I want to see if Karen's going to make it to New York in time to do anything. But yeah, it's incredibly well written. The characters are well written. The story is structured incredibly well. If you want to show Kingpin as a complete and utter, I don't want to use any naughty words, as a complete and utter supervillain, like on par with the likes of Lex Luthor, this is how you do it. Like before this, I doubt he was ever considered a real threat to anyone. But when you see what he's capable of, just because this is a good man that he just wants to ruin, just because he's got the time and the money to do so, that shows a level of sinister that I don't even think Lex Luthor has. I don't think Lex Luthor would ruin a man's life to this extreme when he knew their secret identity. I think he would just reveal the secret identity to just be able to stand there and point and laugh. But he actually goes through the process of getting the IRS after him and cancelling his mortgage payments and getting a good cop to lie under oath because he's got a sick child who, he's threatening to withhold medical treatment from. He put so much effort into ruining Daredevil when all he had to do was go onto the news and say Matt Murdock's Daredevil, it would have had the same, like, it wouldn't have had the soul crushing effect, but it would have ruined Matt and Daredevil's life. But he wanted to break him. You know, it was very Bane and Batman. He didn't want to destroy, he wanted to break him. And it was very, very, very soul crushing to read, even for a character you don't like, just to see how much effort this man is putting in to ruining someone's life. It's a hard read.
And the fact that he almost got carried away, because the fact that he blew up his apartment building was like one step too far. Like, so Matt knew that, well, it's Wilson Fisk, because before that point he had no idea. He thought his friends betrayed him. He didn't really know who was pulling the strings. But to have that kind of power the Kingpin had to destroy your apartment building, and get away with it, essentially, he knew there and then it was Wilson Fisk. So, like, I think they referred to it in the book. He went one step too far. He wanted his trophy. Do you know what I'm trying to say? He wanted the kind of the signature and whatever else, and he didn't have to do that. He could have continued things as they were, but because he destroyed the building, it almost was his downfall, because it gave Matt that motivation, that little ounce of motivation he needed to keep going. At that point, like, Matt was broken. He was on the edge of insanity. He was making random phone calls to people and to the operator and whatever else. He didn't really know what he was doing. But that destroying that building, knowing it was Wilson Fisk, knowing it was the Kingpin, he had to find something from within to do it. And I think you're right that the Kingpin was just written magnificently in this book. And if you thought he was evil before, I think this is the first time reading this, you definitely know now that he's a big evil bee. But great.
Yeah. This is I'm willing to bet that this whole story came out of the question in a meeting, what if someone gave up his name? You know, and to have that one little question spiral and expand into this story, you know, where we have the Kingpin portrayed in this, like, you know, like Shane said, this sinister, super villainous way, seeing a superhero crushed. You know, we don't, you know, you say superhero and people think of an invincible person, an indestructible person who can't be beaten, who can't be bested and everything. And this was done in the most, like, non-superhero way as well. It was just, we'll cancel your bank accounts, your mortgage isn't going through, taxes onto you, you know, but then we'll blow up your house. But it was such, you know, there wasn't a bad guy with a death ray gun, you know, or, you know, someone with an evil monster, like a robot machine. It was just, guy made some phone calls and ruined a guy's life. And this was so, like, brilliant to read, I think, because of that. You know, you barely got any superhero-ness out of the story. You see him in the Daredevil costume a little bit. And this isn't a Daredevil book, this is a Matt Murdock book. And it's just how the Kingpin just basically, you know, if you were going to really simplify this, you would just go, really rich man ruins blind man's life. And that's this story, you know. But because it's Kingpin, because it's Daredevil, because it was a woman that he loves who gave the name away, it's just so good and so psychological, and I was hooked. I don't usually read books in one hit, but I read this in one hit, and that says a lot. Really fond of this type of writing. I think I could read multiple superhero stories written in this way, and I think I would just enjoy them all, to be honest.
Martin is saying that the story was so well written across the multiple characters we're following through the arc. Each character had a few standout moments, and this is the thing with Karen, the fact that former lover of Matt Murdock, such in downtime that she gives his identity up because she feels like she has to, because she needs her next fix. Like that for me, it just shows how low she's at in her life, and obviously her realization that she obviously comes back and tries to find Matt, and because ultimately she needs him to save her too. Like she needs saved, and Matt's the one to do it. And again, I mentioned Ben's story. I think every character had its moments. Every character had something you cared about. I cared for Karn. I cared for Matt. I cared for Ben. Foggy, to be fair, was maybe one I didn't care so much about. He was just there because I suppose Matt needed some sort of help in some way, and Karn needed help in some way. But the fact that he was prepared to go out and beat up Paolo, or whatever his name was, the guy who beat Karn up, he was willing to do that, even though he would get his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Bit of hero in him, I suppose, really. But yeah, I think the way everyone was written is fantastic. And as you said, you could read multiple superhero books like this, because there's a lot of books out there that focus on the main character and other side characters you don't care for. They're just there as part of the story, but you don't care for them. And how often do we say whenever we read books that you don't care for certain characters? You're quite glad they died, or you didn't care that they did die. There was nothing to care about. I think for all these guys, I definitely cared about them. And she mentioned Karen earlier on that's who he was most reading about. And if she had died in this story, it could have been a whole other level for Matt to kind of come back and kick some ass. But again, I agree with what you're saying, Scott. This wasn't a hero book, like superhero Daredevil, acrobat book. This is just him come to terms with what's happened to him and trying his best to the rise again type of thing. So yeah. Paulo Costa is here. I think you've been in chat before, I believe. Been a while. It's almost like it wasn't a Marvel comic. Even the Avengers cameo feels unreal. I think the Avengers cameo in the issues after this, we've only read up to 231.
Yeah.
I think they're in 233. But he does say it was the most personal anyone's ever gotten with Daredevil. Like I say, from what I understand within the comic book world, that at this, people see this as the starting point for Daredevil, because Frank Miller very much changed a lot and given this kind of darker, edgier story.
I have a quick question, if anyone can answer in the chat then. So, like, there's no, at the end of this book, there's no rematch with the Kingpin, like that he becomes Daredevil again, he's born again. He doesn't go back after the Kingpin to have a rematch after Kingpin beat him and put him in a car and left him dead. So Kingpin still knows that he's Daredevil, that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. Does he just sit on that now, or is it forgotten? Does he play on that? Does he threaten to release it, or does he release it at any point?
Then, if my view of this is the fact that he tried to have him killed, and stage his death. But I think very much if the Kingpin was to announce that he knew all along that Matt Murdock was Daredevil, and all this stuff happened with Matt Murdock, then he would be, they'd be looking at him for those reasons, because they've already got enough. The police and the authorities already have enough on Kingpin throughout this stage to keep him that busy. But obviously, Kingpin's that sinister. He maybe wants to have that information to himself, knowing that his time will come again. That's how I take it. As for the showdown or rematch, I think Matt knows that he's not ready just yet, because Kingpin is so powerful. He has the police, he has the nurses, he has all the authorities within the IRS or whatever else, the courts as well, probably. And that we will take him down, but just not the minute. And that's right, take it. That's just left at that for now. But I can imagine they'll revisit that in the future.
I like that, though. I like that the final issue wasn't him going for a rematch and him beating Kingpin. I like that it wasn't building to that, because it wasn't really about the rematch. It was about Matt internally becoming Daredevil again and, being reborn and growing and figuring out who he is. So I get that. And I'm glad that there wasn't a rematch. I was just wondering if there was one coming down the pipe.
Well, Louis is confirmed. The story continues, and Matt eventually brings Kingpin down in a similar way, but it's like issue 296 to 300. Say he thinks that. It probably is that, because I think he knows the stuff. So what's that? 60 issues away? 60 odd issues away from this, which, again, I like that too, when they kind of plant seeds quite early on, do a few different things in between, and then revisit that, because you've had your time, I've bided my time, I've improved, you've whatever had things going on, you're not as strong as maybe you were, and here we are now, take you on and bring you down. Enjoy that. Like I say, I think the Kingpin's just too powerful. He has all the right people in his pocket. How can Matt Murdock bring him down? But I love the fact that whenever, and this is the thing, this is why I think Kingpin, as big as and powerful as he is, he's also quite fragile. The fact that they couldn't find the corpse and he dwelled on that, didn't he? Like there was no corpse whenever they tried to drown him in the taxi cab. That's his weakness. He wanted to go that far, and that's maybe how you bring him down, by playing on that. So enjoy it. Martin's saying, after reading this, I'm happy that he has the Daredevil by Frank Miller Omni pre-ordered, and so do I. I think it's due out in January. Although this story wasn't in that omnibus, that is in the, I know, I shock her. This storyline, I believe, is in the companion omnibus, which probably will be reprinted at some stage. But I think, the Frank Miller stuff, I want to read more Frank Miller Daredevil, to be honest. If it's like this, and if the art's this good, I want to read it all. Absolutely. Paulo Costa saying, after this, Kingpin keeps throwing little curveballs at Matt, but allows the stories to become more focused. Daredevil acts more at a local level. And he says the Kingpin is toying with Matt. It's like a self-justification. The rematch happens at the end of Ann Senti's run. Also, it's not even Frank Miller.
Okay.
I'm trying to. I'm going to quick flick through the book now, and I'm trying to think. Was there any relevance or importance or whatever to Foggy's story in these 5 issues? Was there a point?
Yeah, because essentially at this point, Foggy he was starting on a relationship with Glory, who was Matt's ex-girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, he was.
So because Matt was ringing them and realised that Glory's in his house, he thought all his friends betrayed him. Suppose that was to help Matt feel even more lonely. They couldn't call to them to help him, so he really was on his own. Yeah, that's how he took it.
There was that little thing at the end as well where the Kingpin says that he was the one who hired Foggy. It was him who gave him that job with that big salary place in it.
Yeah, and the fact that they sent this fake Daredevil to that apartment 58, which is a great scene, by the way, when they give the guy...
Oh, I read it as 5B.
Oh, maybe it was 5B.
It's 5B.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe it's 5B.
Because he's repeating it over and over again, isn't he? 5B, 5B, 5B.
I wasn't wearing my glasses. I'm getting old. But yeah, that scene was great, by the way, where it's like 5B, 5B, but the guy gave him the weapon and he turns it on him and just beats him with it. It's just great.
Yeah.
But that's again another sick kind of thing that the Kingpin's willing to do. Get somebody out of not Arkham. What's the Marvel version of Arkham?
No, it's not Blackgate.
Someone in the chat let us know.
Bellevue. Crap.
Yeah. Whatever. Well, someone will know. Louis will know, I'm sure. What's the equivalent of Arkham in Marvel's universe? But the fact that he takes him out just to get him as a fake Daredevil, just go on a killing spree. First kill Foggy and Glory, and then just kill whoever else. It's Ravencroft. Ravenscroft. Is that right? Ravencroft. That is that Ravencroft. Yeah, it is. Isn't it? I think.
It is, I think.
Ravencroft, yeah. So the fact that, like I say, he wants him to go on a killing spree, but he's also going to kill him as well at some point. Because that's the thing too, which is really good with Karen's story. And Kingpin acquired this information, and he killed or wanted to kill everyone who had it as well. Killed the trail. So
anyone who's ever touched it.
And that's so that's why the guys were chasing Karen, of course. But yeah, I think the Foggy story was there as a way, because Matt at this point had been saved, had been born again, but he was just following his friends, wasn't he? He was listening in to the conversations, and of course, when he needed to be there last minute, he struck and saved everybody, which is just classic.
And let's not forget the part where Foggy threw a bowling ball at someone.
Yeah,
to stop Gloria.
Her name's Glory in the book, but she's called Gloriana Breen, and she's from Belfast, because they referenced Belfast a few times. I've never in my life, in the 36 years I've lived here, met anyone called Gloriana O'Brien in my life. But there we are. But yeah.
Frank Miller missed.
Did anyone else think Karen was going to die at the end in his arms and tell him that she did it?
I thought she
forgive her as she died. Yeah.
Whenever the guy that had the shootout, I thought she was a goner. Even though had been shot in the stomach or something and was going to bleed out, whatever, I thought she was a goner at that point. But which I'm quite glad she didn't, to be honest. Because
Yeah.
if she has her kind of what's the word? Resurrection, is that right?
Redemption.
Redemption, that's the word for redemption. Great. Look forward to reading that.
Yeah, I didn't want her to die, but I was expecting it. I was like ready for it. I was like, oh no, they're going to kill her off. She's going to die in his arms, say I'm sorry. He's going to be like, oh, I forgive you. She's dead. And it's like, oh, I was going to feel really bad, but I'm glad. You just get that really sad page at the end with them hugging. So,
I did like the page after that, at the very end, where they kind of summed up that whole fight towards the end in one big page, as if it was written by Ben, the journalist. I'm looking at it now. I'm appreciating it again.
Is this the last page where he's kind of explaining all the endings of things? Yeah, that was
tying
great.
up all the knots.
Yeah. And sometimes at this point of the story, I was thinking, okay, we're heading towards the end of this issue. Are we going to have a wrap up? We're going to have a start, middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And even for that one page, I think it done really well to wrap it up in terms of we know what happened to the fake Daredevil. Here's the two bad guys that were shooting. Here's the two cops that were dead. Here's the guy who was beating up Karen, and here's Ben telling his version of events in the paper. Like, in fact, the Kingpin's occupied now because all this kind of red tape, whatever else. And again, that one page ended the story really well.
Done really well. Yeah.
Totally enjoyed it.
Shane?
yes, no, had it ended with them hugging, I would have been like, where's the rest of it? But yeah, no, it did. This is a complete trade. So, you don't feel like you needed the next two issues. If they are tie-ins, I don't feel like I'm missing anything.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't miss that. I don't miss anything. Like, the fact that we haven't read the next two issues, I'm not like, we're missing something, but I don't. And that's done really well.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the crazy nurse? I can't remember her name now.
I was going to ask, did anyone catch her name? Because I have a note down, but I just have Chubby Nurse was badass, but I don't have her name.
I'll try and find it.
Didn't find the name.
But yeah, she just came out of nowhere and just started being really, really aggressive towards everyone. I thought it was awesome.
It kind of reminded me of that, what's that movie, the Stephen King novel, where she gets the writer hostage and
Misery. Yes,
Misery. Yes, that's the one. It kind of reminded me of that. The fact that she obviously broke into Ben's house and got his wife tied up to hang her, which is really a dark story in its own type of thing, and like, she was a real sicko, that woman. I'm just glad
when
that
you
Matt
first
just
see her though.
One.
Oh yeah, but when I first saw her, I thought it was Kingpin. I thought he was just like in costume. I thought he was just see this huge lump of a person come waddling out. But I thought all the way throughout she was really, really cool. And towards normal people, when Matt comes in, it's just one kick to the face and she's down, which makes sense. But she was just violent and sadistic. Like when she phones up the reporter to kill someone down the end of the line while he's on the phone. That's not just evil, is it? Like that's 2 layers above evil.
But she played a very important role, of course, because she was the one that essentially put the frighteners on Ben to stop him writing his story.
She broke his hand, didn't she?
His fingers, and the fact that he had his kind of moment was like, no, screw this, this needs to be done, and I love that too. But he wouldn't have got to that point if it wasn't for this crazy nurse. Louis is saying, did you get the Bob Dylan album cover homage on the last page?
I've just looked into it, and it's the end of 233. So no, we haven't read that. It's the last page of 233. It's a reference to the Freewheeling by Bob Dylan.
Nice. Yeah. Lois, it is Lewis or Lois. That's what it is. That's the nurse's name. It is 100%.
Ah, Lois. Okay.
Or as Lewis calls her, the Queenpin.
Queenpin.
Oh dear. In terms of like the kind of religious nods, like say each chapter one was called Apocalypse, one was called Purgatory, one was called as a Pariah, which is like an outcast. Obviously Born Again, then Saved. Daredevil's very much in like his whole thing is about the church and Christianity and whatever else, and him being a Catholic, and so he doesn't kill people, for example, and the fact that his mum, we're assuming is his mum. Do you think it is?
Oh, 100%. He even says he recognizes the heartbeat and stuff from the last time he saw her. So, sorry, didn't see her. Sorry.
And he asked her, "Are you my mom?" She says no, and he was able to tell like she's lying. So obviously it must be, which is interesting. I'm certain at some point down the line she maybe plays a bigger role. But again, from the TV show on Netflix, I don't know if if the nun was called Maggie in the show, but there was a nurse there who helped him quite a lot. I can't remember if in the show she was his mum or
a nun or a nurse.
Nun, sorry, the nun in the mission. I can't remember, to be honest. But yeah. And James is saying Kevin Smith's run is very religion based, but worth a read. But worth a read. It's like it's religion based, but worth a read.
Sometimes it can be a bit much, and if that's your religion, that's great. If it's not your religion, you're kind of a bit like, I don't know what half of this stuff is, or I don't care for half of this stuff, or half of this stuff doesn't apply to me. So you can be beaten over the head with it. You can have a religious character without that.
See,
but I understand that it's needed for this story.
I'm not sure. Obviously, that's called Born Again. I was also going to reference it a lot. I don't think Daredevil does beat you over the head with it. Like that's his thing. That's his motivation. That's what it is. And again, I'm not a religious person in terms I don't know the ins and outs of stuff, but I think it's a very important part in this character. So yeah, I'm all for it. Lewis and Martin are confirming that Maggie was his mum on the Netflix show. So yeah, that was good. We have that Bob Dylan one, Scott. Is that it?
Yes, that's it.
So that's the one that Louis was referring to.
The last page there. So if you click on the next picture then.
Nice.
That's what it refers to.
Okay. Nice. I would not have got that.
Well, I like Bob
Even
Dylan.
had I read that issue.
Yeah, I like Bob Dylan, but I wouldn't know the artwork on his album, so that would went over my head. But well done, Scott, for getting that on so quickly. Well done.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
Professional or what? Is there anything else, guys, you want to bring up before we bring this to a close?
All good, my end.
So we happy enough then to go to our final thoughts and scores for our verdicts?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So get our verdicts for this amazing 10 out of 10 book. So, folks, if you have read along this week and you have a score, or if you haven't read along this week but you've read it before and you want to give it a 10 out of 10, by all means, do it. Put it in the chat. We'll count your score, add them of ours, and we'll come with an overall total and see where this falls on the leaderboard. Shane, we'll get what I'm anticipating to be the lowest out of the way.
Get him out of the way, like.
Yeah, we'll get Shane's out of the way. Go ahead.
I can appreciate a well-written book even if I didn't like it, and this is a well-written book. The fact that I didn't enjoy it is character-based. It's not anything to do with the story or anything like that. It's just purely Daredevil. It's not a character I enjoy reading or seek out to read in any way, unfortunately. But again, I can appreciate a good writer. I can appreciate a good piece of art. This is very well written. It's a great, like Scott said, a great jumping on point for a Daredevil reader that wants somewhere to start. Basically, you can start here and you don't feel like you're missing anything beforehand. I really enjoyed how every character had something to do. That's very rare in the books we read. It's nice to have a complete story that feels mature, because some people can confuse grown up with mature. You've got a grown up book which is fart jokes and swear words and nudity, and then you have a mature book that is serious and dark and thought provoking, and that's what this is. This is a great story for how a supervillain can be so sadistic towards their hero to the point where it crosses a line even a super villain should not cross. This is too much torture for one man to force onto another. It's so dark, so gritty, so well done. I wish I had read this 20 years ago. I would have enjoyed it a lot more, and maybe Daredevil would have been a character I started reading. But I've read books like this. I've read dark, adult, mature books. But this is good, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have had it been a different character. So scoring it was really hard, because I enjoyed Karen's parts and the character of her trying to come back to, apologize for what she'd done. I just wasn't enjoying the Daredevil stuff. And then when it got to the nun part, I was sort of checked out. I'm not into any of that stuff. But the Kingpin stuff is phenomenal. If this was called Kingpin, Kingpin destroys Daredevil, I would have gone into it with a bit more of a positive attitude. I'm going to be fair to the book, but also fair to how I normally score, because I normally score on enjoyment. But this one, I'm going to score on quality of this book as well as my enjoyment. So I've met myself in the middle, and I'm going to give this a 7.5.
Nice.
Right, Scott.
Really good book. Really awesome place to jump on if you've never read Daredevil before. Really good starting point. Loved how it was, just all about a really bad, powerful guy breaking down a man. It was, I found it so powerful, so brilliant, so awesome. I loved the religious connotations as we go through the titles. I loved the starting scenes where it's always Matt Murdock in bed, starts off nice and relaxed, stretched out, and issue 2 and 3 and 4 they go a bit more and more curled up, and crap, I'm a mess, I'm ruined, and then you have the final one then where he's like he's saved and he's looking like Jesus. Fantastic story. Love the art, brilliant to read. I would definitely recommend this to anyone who goes, this Daredevil show on Netflix is pretty cool, where do I go to read this? And I'll go, mate, start here. It's pretty cool. Good point. Really loved it. I'm just going to keep saying the same thing over and over again, so I'm going to go for an 8.5.
Nice.
Ooh.
Okay, just before I give my Lewis, can I ask, you've got 2 scores, 9.5 and 9. I am inclined to take the 9.5, but can you just confirm that it is a 9 or a 9.5 just before I finish mine? But quite a few scores in here this evening as well, which is good.
Man. Oh, he said it again, 9.5.
Oh, there we go, 9.5. And, okay, we've got Liam's in there too. Right, listen, I'm not going to repeat what we've said through the last hour. Like, I loved this book. Art's phenomenal. It just reminds me, it reminds me of a simpler time. I wasn't there reading books at the time, but what I would imagine would be a simpler time. I just adore this kind of art style. It is dark and gritty, and as she had mentioned, there are plenty of dark and gritty stories nowadays. But I was a huge fan of this. This is something that's been on my radar for a long time, and I'm gutted I waited this long to read it, but I'm glad I waited this long to read it as part of the Nerd Herd, because I think it's been a great discussion as well. I mean, my favorite book of all time is The Dark Knight Returns, and it took a few reads for me to really appreciate that. Year One's another one which is phenomenal, which is the same team as this. I do think that this could be in that same bracket at some point, and I think with the Nerd Herd sometimes we do kind of rush through books a bit for the Wednesday show, where I feel like I want to read this again almost straight away, take my time with it, and get more out of it. There's a lot of things that I'm sure you'll pick up more in the second or third reads, like the symbolism, whatever else, but ultimately the storyline, the fact that the Kingpin is just a sinister so-and-so that just destroyed this one guy. Didn't even bother to take on the superhero. He destroyed the guy behind the mask. It was phenomenal that it was told, and the fact that you had Ben's story, Karen's story, obviously stuff with Foggy and Glory, and even the cop, Manolis, the fact that it wasn't for that long, but the fact he's doing what he's doing because his son is sick and can't get the treatment, but then to kill both of them anyway. The fact that the Frank Miller's willing to go that far to do this, I just thought it was really, really good storytelling, and really, really enjoyed it. I thought everyone was great, card for them all, but I do think there's room for improvement, and I definitely think that this will probably increase in score the more I read this. So for now, I'm going to go quite reserved, 8.5, but I could have went higher. But I think I will the more I read this, so I went 8.5. Right. We actually have quite a few scores, which is good. I'm not complaining. I just have to go through them all now.
Just a quick one as well. Kev couldn't be here tonight, so we asked if he could send in a score of 9 out of 10.
9. Excellent. I have it too. So I do keep score, but no, Scott, you keep score as well. So you keep me on track. Isn't that right?
Okay, we'll see if we match.
Yeah, we'll see if we match. That's fine. So we have some scores. Louis from Job Comics has given it a 9. Just a 9. Didn't say why, but we hear you. It's a 9. Pablo Costa has given it an 8. Tom, 8.5. J7 Comics, 8.5. Lewis Deacon says, I'm slightly biased as it is probably my favourite book, and I'm a huge fan of Daredevil. It's well written, the art is stunning, everything makes sense, and nothing's just random and or obscure, but there's always room for an improvement. It's a 9.5 from him. Martin has said, I love Daredevil and Frank Miller, so I had high hopes going into this, and I wasn't let down at all. Great art and story. I can't wait to read more of Miller's Daredevil. It's an 8.5 from him. James, great story, fantastic art and style, such a great complex character design and development. Love the fact that it is not a superhero book. 9.5. Chris, hi Chris from Off My Shelves.
Hello.
Another formative read for me. First Daredevil book I read, second Miller book I read. I'm guessing year one's the first. First Mazzucchelli, but obviously not then. First Mazzucchelli and the art. Wow, line work and lighting has grown in my eyes on every read. That's what I'm looking forward to. 9.5. I'm looking forward to the rereads to increase the score. And Liam, just ignored this to be honest. Fun fact, the highest I've scored, one of Phil's choices so far is a 4. Very similar to Shane. A good book, well written, enjoyed the art and colours, but it wasn't as gripped as I thought I would be. 7.5. Liam. Yeah, and then we have Kev's score. Is that right? So that's them all.
Yes.
So 9.5, 9, 8, 8.5, 8.5, 9.5, 8.5, 9.5, 7.5, and a 9. That gives the herd an average of 8.8. Is that correct?
Yes.
And add that with my 8.5, Scott's 8.5, and Shane's 7.5. That gives us an 8.3. Correct?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Pretty much, yeah. So let's see where that falls in the all-important leaderboard. Does it make the top 10? It does. It goes in the second spot, straight into second, behind
Stray Dogs.
Yeah. And bye-bye, He-Man. See you later.
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, no.
And just if you're interested, this is the rest of the leaderboard. So yeah, Battle Pug, fantastic. So in the second spot, and that has been Daredevil Born Again. And I think we mentioned the TV show Netflix, great show. There is due to be a Disney reboot of some sort called Born Again. How much they take from this, I would imagine a lot, but then being Disney, probably not as much as you would think. So that's
Charlie Cox has come out and said it's for younger audiences anyway, so it's not for us.
But I am just delayed to have some Charlie Cox Daredevil because he's fantastic. Just to talk through some stuff coming out this week. Tomorrow, Kevin has a draw along, and it is How to Draw Daredevil. That looks great. Look at that. That is Kevin's draw along. That is tomorrow at 7 p.m. Scott, is that our correct time?
Yes.
Can we just point out that by the end of this book, Daredevil looked just like Kevin?
Yeah, he did.
He did look like the guy from Monsters Future. What was his name?
Duncan.
Duncan, yeah, that's the one, yeah. This Friday as well, it's not scheduled on the YouTube as of yet, but I will be doing another Omnibus. Ooh, what's all the Omnibus about then? That'll be this Friday. I'll be joined by some friends. We'll be talking about the books we've read this year or the ones we've enjoyed the most and looking forward to 2023 collecting. So that'll be Friday. It should be 8:30, but it may be 9. I haven't really... I know I'm terrible at this, but it will be there, 8:30 or 9 p.m. This coming Friday. So yeah, that has been Daredevil. That has been Born Again. Is that us all?
We're reading next week.
Yeah. We'll get there in the end. So next week's read. Will you see this, guys? Will you see this?
Yes.
Go ahead, Scott. What do we have?
We are revisiting the dramatic life of the fashion blogger nicknamed Snot Girl. Cannot wait. It's going to be It's going to be a wild ride, just like the last volume.
To be fair, I am intrigued to see who pushed over that edge. You know,
Exactly.
And then after that, I won't care anymore. What's more after that?
Mate. Can't wait.
Let me get a tissue.
At least we know the top spot's safe for another week.
This is true.
This is Snockle we're talking about, guys.
It might beat Battle Pug. Battle Pug's in danger here, you know. Just unfortunately.
Will.
Folks, that is all. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. It's been great having a lot of people in the chat this week. Any new faces, please come again. Hopefully we entertained you enough that you're here again this week. But maybe we should pick a better book. Snock Girl, come on.
Mate.
I'm just playing.
The first book of 2023 is going to be Snocker.
And he's so proud about that as well.
I'm chuffed, man.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks a lot for everyone joining us, new faces and old returning faces. It's been great having you. And we look forward to next week. So please follow us on Instagram, join the chat next week. Read the book if you really want and tell us how much you hate it. We're okay with that.
I dare
But for now, yeah. He dares you. But for now, that's all we have. Get your ears out. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Love you.